How's it going, everybody? I'm Bob, and in this video, we're going to talk about a type of attack. It's kind of interesting called the XML External Entity attack, and I'm going to get in depth with that using Hack the Box, a challenge that's part of their OWASP top 10 track called Baby Waffles Order. It's amazing. It's a fun challenge, and it's pretty quick. Now, I will say this, if you want to really learn this with me and you want to just get a deep understanding and have it committed to memory, the best way to enjoy this is by go set up a Hack the Box account, log in. You're probably going to need a subscription, the VIP subscription, in order to access this challenge, because this challenge is a retired machine. Retired means it doesn't give you points on the platform, but it does mean you can access walkthroughs and things if you get stuck. So go and do that. If you're not going to follow along, that's okay. You can watch this too. I just need you to be weary of the fact that watching only does so much. Like it can give you the tools to see, pieces to see, but when you actually do it and apply it, that's where you've learned it, because you can actually do it. So why not watch me and follow along and do it at the same time? So let's get into it. And I am going to explain what I did, what I've learned, and some of the key takeaways I think is important. So, if I start to, rant or whatever, just skip to the part where I show it, like if you're just trying to find the solution. But remember, the goal is to learn this and to actually learn it, not just to get a flag. So, first of all, I'm going to show you what I did inside of, Hack the Box. So the first thing you want to do really is spawn the target. I've already got mine spawned, but you're going to click this button. It's going to start the instance. It becomes a Docker container. You may want to click this right here. If you're on Mac, sometimes that doesn't copy and paste as seamless. But, either way, you want this IP and port. I'm going to move that to another screen like I normally do, just so y'all can see. And I don't have to switch between tabs too much. So I'm going to open up Burp. Remember what Burp is? Burp is a web application security suite made by PortSwigger that allows us to capture web requests and even change those web requests between our machine, which in this case for me is PoemBox, and the target web server. So I'm going to hit Start Burp. And then it's starting up. To make this straightforward, I just go ahead and hit Target and go to Open Browser. Click Open Browser. We're going to copy. We already copied. We're going to paste in that IP and port. Hit Enter. You're going to notice, again, it's going to load. You're going to wonder maybe what in the world's taking so long. Well, that's because, remember, there's a feature inside of Burp called Intercept, where if your intercept is on, then you have to manually forward the web request. So this is the first get web request going through HTTP. We just hit forward and hit forward again, and it brings us to this web app. Now, the first thing is usually enumeration, right? You're like, let me discover what this app is. What is this thing doing? What's this button do mindset? And, maybe you run Nmap. In this case, these challenges are really laser focused on understanding very specific web-based vulnerabilities and attacks. So immediately they're giving you XXE. So they're telling you this is an XXE challenge. So that's how I knew in the first place this was XXE. So the first thing that you want to look at when you do this is if you don't know what XXE is, you need to study it. Right? You need to go Google it. So that's what I did. And I Googled and I found, hey, look, I'm using Burp. So why not use PortSwigger's articles? They are awesome. They know what they're doing. They're web application security experts. So XML External Entity Injection, or XXE, is a web security vulnerability that allows an attacker to interfere with an application's processing of XML data. You might say, okay, what is XML? And what we could do is use a AI-based search engine like Perplexity. I use that and ask things like, hey, what is XML? Right? And it will look at a bunch of different sources. It'll pull imagery and it'll tell us what XML is. And I'm telling you just to do your research, but I like these search engines because they're pulling multiple. It's almost like it's saving a couple steps for us if we were to just rely on Google. So XML, or the Extensible Markup Language, is a versatile markup language designed for storing and transporting data in a format that is both human readable and machine readable. So we know we're doing something with XML here. You know, this is a tip I'm giving you. I've talked about in previous videos and challenges where we're doing hacking. There's a repository on GitHub called Payload All the Things. And by the way, I will link all the things I'm talking about in the video description for you, just so you don't have to go and find these for yourself. But I do want you to do that research. So, and this Payload All the Things repo has an XXE injection directory. So, and pages. So there's things and payloads you could use from this repo. I actually did use this one in particular, and I'm going to show you what I did and what I changed right now. So back to the actual machine. I'm on the IP. We want to do the what's this button do mindset. So this is letting us basically reserve a table, it looks like, and get, pick what we want, waffles, or do we want ice cream? In this case, I want some ice cream. So I'm going to do boom, table, hit order, and we immediately see this is formatted in JSON, JavaScript object notation. So I know that because my eye is now trained to spot what JSON looks like. You could use one of the methods I told you if you're brand new to this to Google what's JSON, JSON. And so this request, essentially gets formatted into JSON, and it submits that data, and then, the order is successfully submitted that way. So this is where we know if it's XXE, maybe there's a vulnerability here. So I looked into the payloads, and what XXE allows us to do is we can attempt to take advantage of the vulnerability in the XML parser to actually execute a command or a reference to a file or object on the underlying operating system and return that to us. So on Hack the Box, we know the goal is to get a flag. But in real life, your goal might be to check to see if you can get critical data on the system. Can you get into, Etsy passwd or Etsy shadow? Or these are directories that exist on a Linux system that are really important and store information about usernames and passwords. And can you find data, business proprietary data, any database files? So what we're getting ready to try to do is use this vulnerability to inject a request to provide us with information that's on the underlying file system of the machine running this web application. What we're looking at right here in this ice cream ordering app or waffles ordering app is we're supposed to be contained within the application. Just like when you're in your email, your goal is to be in your email inbox. You shouldn't be able to access the underlying servers that make that email inbox work. Usually you're not supposed to do that as an end user. So what we're doing is we're testing what if there's a vulnerability. We're being web app pen testers, and we're saying, can we take advantage of the vulnerability to get that underlying information or to get control of the system? So I'm going to show you what I did, and I'm just trying to provide more context. That's why I rant a little bit. We know I'm in Visual Studio Code, which is already on Pwnbox. You could download it or install it. I would recommend Sublime Text or Google code editors and play with them. The reason I'm using a code editor is because they automatically detect what language it is, so they know where indenting should be, all those things that are hard to remember about every language. A lot of times your code editors can kind of spot. That's why, I copy and pasted this in. I didn't write this from scratch or off the top of my head. I went to the payload all the things. I grabbed this. I copied this right here. And then I pasted it in just so I had it handy. And as I was studying the app, and this is where I probably spent my most time, I was studying the app, looking through how come this isn't working? I kept trying to use this right here, right? Like just submit request. Let's see what happens. And it was giving me an error, right? So I was like, I wonder if maybe there's no first name and last name. Sorry, I'm switching back and forth. Maybe there was no, like, these elements right here. Maybe those didn't exist on the system. Like the actual target, our ice cream and waffles app. So, I actually used ChatGPT. Where are you, ChatGPT? And I'll show you a chat transcript. And I do use the memory feature. I recommend if you got ChatGPT, use the memory feature, meaning you can tell it, like I'll share notes with it. You can tell it, remember this. And I will say, because we're talking about hack the box and we're talking about real life, in real life, I would avoid taking any business proprietary source code or data that a company owns and putting it in ChatGPT, because you technically haven't been given permission to do that when you're on a pen test. You usually will sign an NDA of some kind, so that you're not disclosing. And you want to be responsible with people's information. With Hack the Box, I'm putting what I need to in ChatGPT, especially retired machines, and I'm just trying to learn the actual content, the underlying concept. So I say that because I want you to be careful about what you put in the ChatGPT. So essentially what I was doing, I was putting source code of these web pages and these different web requests that you see in like Burp, for example, and asking it, what are some header or element names you think for this app? And it actually helped me find out table num and food were header names. And really, honestly, that initial original request shows them right here. So that's one thing. I overlooked that completely when I initially did this, and I was just kind of relying on ChatGPT to help me through it. But I copied this whole request into ChatGPT and I asked, can you help me craft this payload to use these header name or these element names instead of first name and last name? And of course it rewrote it with those as the element names. So, that's how I knew that. And, just put in a number, because when you actually submit, like you'll see here, let me pull up the browser. When you submit the order, this is how it submits it. You forward that, and then it shows you, successful. So that's how it's submitted. That was the format it submitted it in. But because we know this is XXE, we could, refresh here, and instead of, just make sure it picks it, hit order, you send that to repeater. Just lets us, hold on, let me go forward again. This is the one you send to repeater, because it has the actual, the actual data that it's going to submit to the app. So send to repeater. I'll close that other one just so it's not confusing. And this actual request is what we're going to change. So this right here in VS Code is what's called a payload. So this is, when you hear the term payload, that's the thing that's delivering the actual malicious request. So from a defensive perspective, this is the malicious code, right? If you found this is what would be reported as malicious code. Now, Payloads go much bigger and can be much more complex. But with this attack, this is our payload. This is the thing that is initiating or attempting to initiate the actual malicious action. So I'm right-clicking this. I'm copying this. Notice I'm removing this JSON in favor of XML. So I'm going to paste it in there. See, it's kept the formatting, which we wanted, because formatting matters and how the web application is going to interpret it. So I'm going to show you something I was doing for a while, and I want your help to fix this issue. I want you to think about why this is going to be an error. So I'm going to hit send. Boom. I'm getting an error here. And it says status, danger, message. You need to select a food option first. Why is this happening? Why is the request that I've crafted here, the payload that I've crafted, failing? Why am I getting an error message? I was stuck on this for a little while. Remember what I said about JSON. Look really closely at the request over here. This one. Look closely at it. What do you think I need to change? It's really small. If you guessed this content type right here, you're correct. So I was stuck on this for a little while. It's not JSON, right, anymore. We changed it with the payload. It's XML. So we're going to change that to XML. And that's a good thing to know for future challenges as well. And anything you do with Burp. So we hit send. Boom. It works. So let's take a closer look at this code and what it's actually doing. So I'm going to go full screen for y'all just so you can see it a little bit better. So XML version, that's just saying it's the version of XML, and this is XML code. We're doing a doc type replace entity example system command, or we're looking for a file on the underlying operating system. And the default, sort of boilerplate code I copy and pasted in had etc or etc pass WD, which, is where old school Linux systems used to put password hashes. They're now usually in shadow, etc shadow. But this tells us something. This validates and verifies that there is indeed a vulnerability, an XXE vulnerability, because I'm able to reference a file on the underlying system. The web server is taking that request and it's actually fulfilling the request, which is outside of the scope of what that application. Remember, this application isn't to help system administrators discover files on a system. This application is to help people order ice cream and waffles. This is a vulnerability. This is a serious issue. Just should be prioritized. So, bigger picture concept, real life, what you're doing as a pen tester and as a security researcher a lot of times, especially if you're doing hacking for an organization, is you are actualizing risk. So you're not just putting your tinfoil hat on and saying, this is horrible, this is really bad, this is good, these are the things that could go wrong, and scaring people, but not really showing them anything. With this, with pen test and the pen test report that you deliver to them, you're showing them these are the things that you're vulnerable to. I've prioritized them for you. High findings, medium findings, low findings. And usually the high findings, you put them at the top of the report. So with the security team, when they get those, they know I'm gonna prioritize this first, because our pen testers, they were able to discover that this could have the maximum business impact. Because, believe it or not, it may sound crazy, but some companies are huge and they have so many systems that have vulnerabilities in them that they can't fix all of them. Maybe they perceive it as too expensive in time and money to fix every vulnerability. So a pen test can help really prioritize which ones you should focus on based on what the potential damage that could be done from that vulnerability is. And I think with a pen test like what we're talking about here, you can get much closer to truly seeing what, could happen. Instead of just being in security theater, which is like, making security seem such a big deal, but actually not truly prioritizing it. And, you see what I'm saying there? So, and I'm ranting, just educational rants. So again, if you're like, bro, I don't care about that part, always skip ahead to the like actual action of me doing it. But what I'm doing here is, since we're in Hack the Box, we know we're looking for a flag, right? It's CTF inspired. So you're always looking for a flag. You most likely won't find a flag on real engagements, but still, I like the flags. It's cool. So I'm gonna do send this request, right? Because we're in repeater, like I did earlier. I right-clicked that request and I said send to repeater. And instead of looking for etc pass WD, we're looking for the flag. And boom, there's your flag. So that's what we did. That's how you beat this challenge. And that's a little bit about XXE and what XXE is. If you have a test coming up where you're studying it, or you're, really trying to understand this so you can be in web application security or pen testing as a whole, I hope this helped you. And let me know in the comments what you think about it. If it helped you, let me know. If you have more to add about this kind of attack and vulnerability, let me know. I'll put all the stuff in the notes that you need, all the descriptions, all the links. And until the next video, keep learning.